do you prioritize your relationship, the Chris and Mason relationship, above or below Solstice's success?
I think I would say
Welcome to Hello Grow,
The #1 growth podcast.
I'm Court Brady.
I am Carlos Souza.
And today we have Chris Ensign and Mason Dutton, and we're pumped to have you guys. So thanks for taking the time to be on the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
You
yeah,
guys
that's great.
have been childhood friends, played football together in the great state, great country of Texas. And you guys ended up founding a company together in 2006 in the construction space, which we're going to talk a little bit about. And technically founded it in 2009, so we're going to talk a little bit more about that as well. Mason, quick introduction on Mason. He's got the world's biggest, most attractive calves of anyone I've ever met.
He's going to get jealous.
He's a Cornhuskers alumni football player, and on all seriousness, Mason has shaped the way that I've viewed being a dad. So I appreciated your insights and how you show up for your kids. It's been an awesome example to me. We've been able to travel around the world together in the Entrepreneurs Organization, so we know each other really well. Introduction to Chris. He's like a slightly taller, quite a bit more handsome, more charismatic version of me, I feel like. Blonde, tall.
I don't have the calves of Mason, though, so.
More jacked, bigger calves, not
like
quite
I like
as big
his
as
compliment
Mason's.
better.
Everybody loves Chris, and I think in your guys' relationship, Chris, you're the visionary, Mason, you're the integrator. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but as I've seen your guys' relationship, that's kind of the conclusion that I've deduced. You guys are 50-50 partners in Solstice Development, and it's been almost 2 decades that you guys have worked together. And the one thing that I preach to every entrepreneur that's starting a business is never, ever, ever at all costs be 50-50 partners. And you guys have made it work. So the agenda, by the way, Solstice Homes builds luxury multifamily units in Utah and now Idaho. Is that right?
That's right.
Awesome. Like beautiful stuff. If you're in Holiday, you can check out their stuff. It was really cool to go through and tour it. The agenda is we're going to talk about your guys' journey here, who convinced who to start working together. You guys had to move families, what it was like in 2009, how you guys got through that, and then highs and lows of the last 20 years as you've successfully grown Solstice Development together, and then the future plans for Solstice. Then we'll pivot to our principle of what a successful partnership looks like. So we'll talk about why you guys chose to do 50-50. What the pros and cons are, why it worked for you, why it doesn't work for most people, personality traits that people should look for in partners that they're thinking about going into business with. And then we'll also talk about this concept of rocket fuel, kind of the Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniaks of the world that have built something highly successful with a visionary integrator personas, and see if you guys fit that mold or if you guys have created your own route. And then we'll follow it with a last question of the advice that you would give to your younger self in your 20s. So with that, let's just start with, first in the introduction, anything that we got wrong?
I feel like I'm pretty good looking too.
You're pretty good looking
You
too.
left the calves part.
But you don't have blonde hair, all those. You're not slightly taller than me.
Is it because I'm fat?
You got the calves, Mason. You just got to be happy with that.
So that works.
Let's start at the beginning. How did you guys get started? Who convinced who?
I called Mason to come to Utah, but I do think it started quite a bit before that. I'm going to go back to 11th grade, Boots Williams math class. Mason and I used to talk about, I think it was a ski mountain.
Just owning a mountain.
A mountain.
I don't know if we were going to ski on it. But
yeah, we were like, we're going to buy a mountain and I guess develop it. But I don't even think we said that. But we talked about it regularly, that we were going to own a mountain. We currently have a development on a mountain, and I think we regret it.
Yeah, that would have been early 20s conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't buy a mountain.
Don't buy mountains.
Or if you do, get lots of soils tests.
So yeah, it started back then. Just a lot of discussions about what, it was kind of like what future life is like and what we would do. So that's kind of, I think that's where it officially kicked off was.
For sure, yeah. It was actually at his house. I do remember having that conversation about the mountain. Yeah. And then he drugged me out to Utah.
What was that, 2005, 2006?
Yeah, it was 2005. You swooned me into coming out, and I get out there and I look at the beautiful red rocks and the green grass and St. George. It's like, yeah, we can do this. We can figure this out.
2 years prior to
The beautiful
a crash.
Yeah, that was a great session.
We timed it perfect. Our timing is impeccable.
So yeah, year three
Honestly,
is like
though,
the hardest year of business, and that just timed up with the recession.
Honestly, I think we were better off if we would have started any sooner.
I
There
know.
would have been a lot more inventory that we would have had to figure out what to do with. I mean, we got out relatively unscathed. I wouldn't say that we were fully, but if we would have started in 04, it could have been
I
a lot.
agree.
We could
Being
have been a lot
deeper or more leveraged at that time would have been harder.
Yeah.
We were just getting started. So
But yeah.
anything's a win, back then when you're starting.
So the gap between 11th grade and 2006, Chris, you were already developing in Utah, and you said, Mason, you come do this with me. And Mason, you were
No,
just like,
I hadn't really
"Heck yeah,
started.
dude."
I mean, really, by the time we got out of college, we paired up within, 2 years probably
I would say because I wrapped up in 03, so I was 3 years
in
at,
a career.
Johnson.
And I was delayed by 2 years. So, I mean, I was wrapping in like 05. So really within a year we had started.
We did build a spec house together before all this started.
That's right. That's right. So we were
In 11th grade?
No,
I know 05.
There wasn't a whole lot of attention to detail in 11th grade. It was just kind of like get through it all. Yeah.
Yeah, that's typical.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how it started though. Was I said we were in this neat development down in St. George, big golf course community, and it was kind of all the craze then was these high-end golf course communities. So we started building custom homes. I think one of the homes was a $5 million home back in 06 or 07.
Yeah.
It was kind of wild. But we did a handful of homes down there, and it was just learning the business. So it was just where we started.
So talk me through, before we get to 2008, 2009, and how you guys managed that. How did you finance your first home that you guys decided to build together? If somebody's thinking, I want to go do this, I want to go build luxury, what advice would you give to them on how to finance, how to put the deal together?
Well, if you recall back then, there was one advantage called stated, where no one really had to qualify for loans. And now we weren't the ones getting those loans necessarily. I guess you did one. But it was a little easier. But you still had to put together kind of a deal idea pro forma and get someone to buy off on it. So I think we both, but I just kind of went to people and would pitch our deals down there. We'd show them this great community. We'd invite them down. They'd golf. They'd kind of see the whole thing. And then we'd show them a lot and say, hey, I think we can build this home. And we made an arrangement with people. And so we just started doing that over and over again. And, we built, I don't know, a dozen homes down there, maybe not. But, so that was it. Getting started was like one of my biggest questions back in the day was just how do you start?
How would you do it today? If you, in the same climate, someone wants to start from zero.
I've debated that a lot over the years. I've debated that. There's kind of two paths in my mind for real estate development. You either go to work for a bigger outfit and you learn a lot and you see a lot, but you probably actually do less. So you're a smaller piece in a big puzzle. Or you do it our route and you do everything. You're responsible for everything, but you're learning. You're taking all the hits along the way too. So I don't know. I don't know which one's better. Maybe it comes down to your personality. We never worked with a developer. We just observed. We learned. We tried. I read a book once that said how to raise money, and it wasn't even a book about raising money. It was a reference on a page on what you give an investor for raising money. And I was like, okay, there it is, and I just tried it and it worked. So
I don't want this to, what were you going to say, Mason? There's something.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
I don't want this to come across the wrong way. So many people that we've interviewed, it felt like we were too, and myself included in this camp, too ignorant to fail. Like, I didn't understand all of the complexities that I was going to run into and how difficult and how many times I was going to be punched in the teeth. And if I did understand the future pain that I was going to endure, probably wouldn't have done it. But I feel like that's one of the superpowers. And is that what you're saying? Like, we just figured it out and got punched in the teeth and figured it out and went on and went on and went on until you have this massive
I
successful
relate
business.
to that Totally. And to be honest, it's kind of a thrill. It's a rush a little bit, you know, so, and certainly you take your hits, but I mean, I feel like it was just learn as you go. And I think we both have a pretty deep belief that we can, you know. I think if anyone can, we can, you know. And so I think the belief has always been there. And I also think, yeah, it's just find a way, you know, and we've done that for 20 years. And our deal size changed from just, you know, single family homes to, you know, large communities and condo buildings now. So you just keep pushing. You know, we did an exercise not long ago where I think it was 10 years we looked back, or was it 20 years? We looked back and we kind of said, like, where you were then, use that to chart your future trajectory. And if you go back 10 or 15 years and say where you were then and chart your trajectory, you can go out 10 or 15 years. And I actually thought it was pretty compelling because, you know, why wouldn't you continue that same trajectory? So we're excited about the future buildings we'll do and the size and scope and scale and cities we'll go into and what we'll do. And we totally think that's our future.
Let's say that I've never, I wake up one day, I don't have any experience in development. I've never worked in the field. I wake up one day and it looks attractive to me. What should I do? What should the first 3 steps? And I want to go your route to do everything. What should the first 3 steps be for that person today?
That's almost a tough question because it's. I mean, I would say that to Chris's point, we did do everything. However, we did start just building homes, right? So there was kind of that element of just building homes. Now, I'm guessing somebody that wants to be a developer would wake up and say, I love that piece of property. I want to go buy it, and I want to figure out its best use. And that would probably be one of the first steps, I would say.
I agree. You got to find a deal. You got to find a deal that you believe can work. That somehow or another, when it's all said and done, it's gonna cost you less than you can either sell it or rent it or whatever, and you're gonna make money on it. So you just gotta find something that will work. Storage units, single family homes, a rental project, apartment building, an office building, whatever it is, you've just got to decide to find a deal and believe that your numbers work. I mean, that might be all 3 steps in one, but that's really what it is. And execute it, you know. Find it, get your numbers to work, and execute it.
And getting your numbers to work, that's always fun.
I just realized for the first time that what you guys do is you become really good startup people.
Over and over. And we sell our company every couple years.
Yeah. Yes, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
We're
You have kind of a framework.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Excellent at it, yeah.
Okay, let's go to 2008, 2009. Where were you when you first saw this starting the tank? Was there like a specific moment, or did it happen over a couple months? What was your game plan? How did you guys survive while so many others were going out of business?
Did we survive? We're here, but it's
just
funny.
a shell of your future self.
I really don't know if we were sharp enough's not the right word, but aware enough to understand what was really happening and how severe it was going to be for the next couple of years in 08. I mean, I think we saw things slowing down, but I don't know that we really understood what it was going to be. I mean, it really took us 2012, 2013 before we kind of crawled out.
My only comment there, though, we pivoted immediately.
Well, we did.
We went from a $5 million home and started building track homes just to keep the lights on.
Well, true. I'm just saying, it's like, I don't know that we knew it. And like, it's like,
Yeah.
I wasn't sitting there going, oh, wow, there's a recession here.
Yeah.
Right?
I agree.
The last one was call it the tech boom in the 2000s, but we were both in college. It didn't really affect us at that point, right? So
I think we experienced both, you know, we pivoted 100%. We went from high-end luxury to track homes. And then at the same time, we got ourselves into our largest deal ever. We went from single-family homes to 130 townhomes. We started that in 2010. I might remember that.
Yeah.
So within 2 years, and we might have been wrapping homes up in 08. And by very into 2009, 2010, we had 130 townhomes to build. So I don't know. I mean, but we totally went through pain too, but we also kind of just adapted as quickly as we can.
To the point when we were in that 08 to really in 08, I moved from St. George here, and we did start doing, call them semi-custom homes.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Right before rooftops was our big townhome project. Yeah, I mean, it was actually interesting how we attracted people to that. We'd throw signs on lots, to your point, that just said 3.5% down, we'll build you a house.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you remember that? So
Yeah.
I mean, we did get a little creative. To your point, we did pivot well, because people still wanted to build homes. There were still people that weren't negatively affected. So we did do that for a while. So yeah, you're right. I mean, it was a good pivot. I just don't. I wasn't sitting in a room like 9/11 when you sat in a room and you saw it happen. You're like, wow. Like when the recession happened, it was not like this light went off in my brain. But you're correct. We did pivot well.
I think so. There's some parallels with Aspen when COVID hit, where we started in 2017. So we were still fairly new, and in that stage of a company, I think you're constantly asking yourself, what do we do differently? How do we change? How do we get product market fit? Like, what is the market needing? And I think it's way easier to shift when you're already in that mindset compared to this is what we do. This has been our process for the last decade or 2 decades, and we have to stick with this because we don't know anything else. But you guys had already been exercising that muscle of how do we do something different, because you're in startup mode still.
The only thing I find humorous about that is the last 6 months of our life. I mean, I don't know if we've ever not been in, how do we do it differently? How do we change?
Right.
That didn't work that well, change it, do it. You know, that's, you just described our never-ending life, is that right there. I mean, we are constantly changing everything about how we do our business, trying to simplify it, trying to make it cleaner, really, we kind of did this analysis once. So I kind of do the entitlement side of the business, kind of the front end part of it. And I have about 25 different outside sources of trades that I work with to bring a project up to even start it, to permit. And Mason, who kind of executes a little bit more of the full project, he has over 100 trades that we work with. So really, you got 150-ish people that you've got to have relationships with, and at one degree or another, coordinate and collaborate throughout a 2-year project, and to make it work somehow. So it's never ending, that what you just described of how can we do this better? How can we communicate better? How can we design better? How can we execute better? I mean, it just never ends.
Can you guys give us both sides of the coin? So up till present, and I know there's so many probably on both sides of the coin, but coordinating with that many people and working with as many zeros as you guys have in the projects that you guys are building after the $, what has been the bottom 5% of like, how in the world did everything go wrong, and what are we going to do, and why are we here, and what have we done? And then the other side of like, man, we had to deal with all these people, all odds were against us, and we pulled this off, and we need to celebrate.
Great question. Do you want to go?
Bottom 5%. Right?
Bottom.
That's
one
easy.
on the bottom, one on the top.
I'll rephrase the bottom 5 question one more time.
So you're sitting there asking yourself, why in the world did I choose this profession?
Oh, I see. Honestly, I don't think I've done that. I think there's points in it where we're racking our brain thinking that the people that we work with are 18 players, not necessarily our employees. We believe all our employees are fantastic and are good at what they do. It's our third-party relationships, like you're saying, that they've been in the business longer or the same amount of time as we have, but yet there's still things that they're leaving out of what they do, not incorporating it. They've been working with us for years, knowing what we want and what we expect. So that's a little frustrating, but I don't know that I've ever sat back and said, I don't love doing what I do. And that may be because of the people in the office, to be honest. I love going to the office. I love our staff. I love the people we work with. But you know what? I guess there was a moment when we were crawling out where there was some time spent in the basement by myself, figuring out how the next paycheck was going to come and where it was coming from. But that was shortly after the 09 debacle. But I still don't know that it was a question of what am I doing. It was just, how are we going to get out of this?
I agree. I mean, just since COVID, construction got harder. If I'm going to say bottom 5%, it's just construction is hard right now. It got way way more challenging. There's just a strain across the whole industry. I've heard that we're nearly 1 million tradesmen short in the country, so everyone's just a bit tighter. It's just harder. There's been a shift downward in just general output, so it makes it super challenging. So if I were to say my top 5% or my bottom 5%, it's just it got harder to do the same thing we used to do. On the flip side, the top 5% of what we do for me, I knew I wanted to go into business at a young age because I liked the idea of when you create something, seeing an outcome. I love that. I still do. I still think it's incredible. And when you stand in a multi-story building and you think there was just nothing here before, and now people's lives live here, they create memories here, this is home. You think of all the purchases you make to provide someone not just shelter but home. It's a pretty incredible thing that we sell, that we create. And in a way, I bet it's pretty rewarding to do like a custom home. But I love creating a whole community into one building, that way there's rooftop amenities. They can go up on the roof and see the beautiful mountains in Utah. I don't know. I love looking at it. In fact, I took a picture of our building today. And what's funny is when you're done with a project that you spent 2+ years on, you kind of need like a breather. Maybe like you feel about EO sometimes. You can edit that, but you needed a breather. We need a breather from projects when we're done. It's like, man, we spent 2 years on that plot of land, and it was hard. But you drive back by it later, and you see it, and you're just like, wow, that is a beautiful building. And we have people all the time come up to us and say, your buildings, your projects are so beautiful. And it's just really fun and rewarding to be like, yeah, they are amazing. But it's just brain damage getting through them sometimes. So I want to meet the developers that do it with ease, because we need to learn from them. I've talked to a lot, and a lot of them, it's just hard business to do. So I do think for everyone that says developers are greedy, the risk and the brain damage to reward, they're appropriately matched.
I have a question. I'm trying to find a way to phrase it. There's the famous story about McDonald's that, he thought that he was in the burger business, and then he was actually in the real estate business. And then we actually had a guest here in the podcast that he thought for a long time that maybe you know him, Lonnie. He was part of the EO, but he thought that he was in the snack business, healthy snack business, but he was actually in the feeling when you open a box business. That's the new age. Young people love opening a box. And when he realized that, that was his marketing. And then his business really thrived on that. Maybe the answer is no, we don't have anything different. But from going back to Chris, what you're saying, like you're selling a dream, like you're selling not a shelter, home. Can you talk a little bit more about that? What do you guys sell?
I know exactly what I feel about that. I think we sell lifestyle. So, a lot of times people will buy for, the needs of their family. We typically sell to a demographic and to a buyer that's generally an empty nester, whether they're single or married. They're typically, we call them downsizing boomers or whatever, but really they're done with, a big home and the yard work and all the maintenance on a home. But they want to stay like in the community that they're from, or we always we call it super prime locations. We always have to be in great locations that you can fall out your door and hit restaurants and shopping and walk in a beautiful place and see a park. And, so everywhere we've ever gone is very amenity rich from the built environment around them. So really we sell lifestyle. I mean, part of our marketing is light bulbs and air filters, lock and leave, so people can really just come and live their life instead of kind of being, I don't know if you want to say burdened by your home or whatever, but there's just a phase in life when 2 stories on a quarter acre or whatever you had before doesn't meet your needs anymore. And now you travel and you do all these other things. So condo development really caters to a lifestyle buyer. So we sell lifestyle and it's fun. That part's fun.
We're going to pivot into 50-50 partnerships.
Nice.
But before we do, what does the next 10 to 15 years for Solstice look like? From a high level.
Interesting you say that. From a high level, I think dialing in our production process and everything that we do daily to make it a smoother operating company, to make things easier on ourselves as a developer. And we've talked a lot about how hard it is. But I think getting that right enables us to exponentially grow from where we are right now. And I would say right now we're pretty sizable developer builder. But I think at that point, like Chris talked about earlier, charting it out, it's just going to be rapid growth. And I think there's a lot of opportunities still here in Utah, Idaho, surrounding states that will let us do that.
Yeah, we love our product. We really believe in what condos do for people. So where we can go from here, I mean, what's interesting is I charted out recently in the western United States, 22 cities that meet the criteria for condo. And I know some people may not like to hear this, but you actually the price per square foot condo is relatively high. You're moving into a smaller space, but it's very upgraded. You get everything you want in it. So it doesn't pound for pound for homes. No, they don't cost the same. So, but for locations that currently sell condos at approximately $1,000 a foot, there's 22 cities in the West. And we think once you can, it's a fairly complex model to put together, but if you can get that model right, there's never, we're at the very, actually we're maybe a quarter of the way into the boomer wave, which, as you guys know, boomers are, 80% of the wealth in the country. They are the most qualified buyers. Half our buyers pay cash for our units. So you look at like who we're selling to. They're right now, over the next 15 years, the boomers are retiring. They're downsizing. Like there's a wave there. They call it the silver tsunami. It's a wave of these people that want to eventually move out of their homes and go into a lifestyle. And the more I watch, our country and everyone, is people want lifestyle. They kind of want to live like they're on vacation. So we love what our product is, and if we can get this model right, our production model right, I think we can roll it out and we, anyway, in short, we love our niche and we believe in it.
What's the number one biggest potential roadblock that's going to keep that future vision from
production
coming to fruition?
Execution of the projects. Yeah.
In a timely manner.
And you guys own that? Is that internal execution or execution of your subs?
I think there's we're taking a formulaic approach to the whole thing. At this point now, we used to kind of trust in the expertise of all the trades we work with. Now we're going to kind of pull that back and say, hey, this is how you do it the Solstice way. This is the condo formula, and you've got to play ball our way. And I think if we can own that formula, I think we have the path.
You win. Cool. Okay, so let's jump into 50-50 partners. What are the pros and cons of being 50-50? Who's the head of Solstice?
Yeah, we are 50-50.
Amazing.
Yeah.
You both just looked at each other for those listening on audio, and you're both the head of Solstice. Okay, so talk us through co-leading a company. What's amazing about that, and what are some tricky points that if somebody's thinking about starting a business 50-50 with a partner, they want to identify before they do?
Well, it's funny because I was talking to Chris about this earlier, and the initial advice would be like, don't. And not for any reason other than the fact that it's not so challenging in the aspect of it's like hard for us to figure things out. We sit with each other, we discuss everything, right? Like we don't make decisions without running it past each other. And it's not like everything, but when it's important and impactful, we do. But I would say that it's not for everybody. It really isn't. You have to have unique personality traits. I don't even know that I could quantify what they are between us. I mean, obviously there's the trust factor. There's the factor of the, excuse the language, but let shit go factor. You know what I mean? Like we don't harbor anything with each other, right? Like we can be mad at each other 1 minute and the next minute we're fine. Or we discuss it and apologize. So it's just probably there's a number of different things, right? But it is a challenging thing from the standpoint of it has to be right personalities. I mean, it's like a marriage. You got to find a way to make it work always. But I also think that's a very unique thing that we're able to do. I don't know that I have a right formula for it either. But
We're going to dissect a little bit of the formula, but Chris, I'm curious of your answer.
I'm going to just start on the other side of it for a minute. I'm going to lead with why I think it's fantastic. And then we can.
This is why you guys are such a good 50-50 partnership.
I think to Mason's point he's saying, though, is it is unique. I mean, I think we have partners in deals, and most of those go pretty well, but could I do what I do with Mason with some of those partners? No, I don't think I could. So in general, partnership can be challenging. So that's why I do think you guys would say you're accurate to say it has inherent risks. But why I'll just say why I love it, and I'll start by saying he and I had a deep level of trust in high school with each other. Our friendship was kind of built on this trust that, I remember at your wedding, in fact, everyone got up and said, ultimately, why Mason is such a great guy. It was like there were toasts, but everyone talked to him. And I remember my words was, who Mason is as a friend is why I value him so much. It's like it's so meaningful the way Mason approaches relationships as a whole. So I think he's very good at that. His family, his mother and father are the same way. There's just deep goodness in Dutton's relationships. It's just who they are. So one, I think it takes people that are more committed to us than to ourselves in a relationship. And I mean, if you really evaluate over a 15-period year or whatever we are, 17 years at this point, there's you can clarify, but I think it's rare when we really have a moment of something, and it's never more than a moment.
Very rare. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's only a moment.
Once or twice a
When
year,
he yell-
we're
when
kind
he
of
yells
like,
at
dude,
me,
what is
being
this?
home and getting yelled at,
Well, and we played sports together too. So you got to factor that in, that like in sports, you kind of will bark occasionally, like at each other, like get your roll or this or that. And it was more him towards me in sports, So it's like, this is common, language. But again, I mean, again, you might see it differently. But anyway, back to why I love it, because, and I don't know if I could do it another way. Not being 50-50, I don't think there's another way. Personally, I think that's the only way to do it, because then there is no me really in it. We're completely and totally devoted to the success of both of us. I think about, I pray for Mason and his family. I pray for Mason. I pray for his wife. I pray for his kids. I want his success as much as I want mine. It's just like us together is the future. That's how we've made it so far. I would hate to do it without him. I just, there's a deep level of commitment to the success of us in me, and I believe in you too, so.
And to couple with that, I think it's ultimately an understanding as well. We all have different pinch points in what we're doing, right? Chris will have moments where or maybe I'll say me, where I'm drinking NyQuil so I can go to sleep at night, right? And he's at a different spot in what he's trying to work to accomplish, right? Right now, we're both in the throes of it all the time. But understanding, someone's going to be busier than the other at certain points is just a natural thing. Because you hear about a lot of partnerships, he's out playing golf, or he's doing this while I'm doing X, right? And we just have the understanding that we know both of us are going to be busier at different times. And
we fulfill different roles,
right? Exactly.
So we're not two chiefs on one thing. We very much have different roles in the company. Yeah. So
if you guys had to say, maybe this is an unfair question, do you prioritize your relationship, the Chris and Mason relationship, above or below Solstice's success?
I think I would say you and ours relationship.
I would agree.
Yeah.
But I also think that's why.
That's one and the same almost, though, because I don't think we make decisions. It's pretty easy for Mason. We go through hard times, not necessarily us, but challenges with work. I think we're both decent at, we leave work, you just leave it. My phrase is, I put a bullet in it and I go home and I have a great night. I don't care sometimes, you
There
know.
might be certain music we listen to on the way home. that
Yeah,
just
you
get
gotta
into that
like
mode,
let it
you
go
know?
and just like go live your
exactly.
life too. I've always felt like you work so you can live a great life. I don't want to live to work, you know. And yeah, I know work creeps in. Sometimes you get kind of busy on things, but overall, it's a pretty great life to have, you know, to work with your best friend that you grew up with, to create great projects, and to you know, and in the end, you kind of want to know you fought through some things, you know, like when you're 65 or 70 or whatever, and you're kind of looking back and like, man, we struggled and we did it. Like, I'd hate to do it all and it was just easy, right? I mean, we could use a breather right now. It's been pretty hard for a long time, but I mean, the struggle's real, but I love it, you know. I don't know.
To add to his point, I don't know how people do it by themselves. I honestly don't.
Yeah, I agree.
Whether it's what we do, whether it's what other business owners do, I think that's why EO is so great, because it gives the opportunity for people that are by themselves to have, you know, the ability to talk to like-minded people. But I couldn't sit back here and say I could do all this by myself, or would even want to. I mean, maybe my opinion there is skewed because we've been doing it together for so long, but I know that kind of contradicts totally what I said earlier about don't, but
well, I think it's wise. Don't, if you, some people know they're not great in a partnership, you know, like some people know they shouldn't, right? I mean, teammate is really who we are, and we've been that first almost, you know, so I do think you'd have to head into that kind of wide eyes to say, hey, we're really capable, we're really compatible, we're really, you know.
I do want to point out that he wanted to fight me before we were friends.
I want to hear about
Over a girl?
Hey,
No.
Over his haircut, over his. We've made fun of Mason's hair for years, by the way.
I'm an excellent dancer. And it's a beautiful hair. Everybody's been jealous of my locks.
Look, it was his friends, but
Yeah, it was
before
his.
we actually met, he was. Well, you know, his dad played for the Cowboys. Everyone kind of knew who Mason was. Great player. We were at rival schools. That was kind of what you did in Texas. You picked your target, and you kind of were like, hey.
I was it.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Well,
What a beautiful Romeo and Juliet.
I know, right?
talking about fighting, guys, I'm having a good time here. You have no idea, but I'm on a quest to prove Court wrong. He said that 50-50 partnerships don't work, and the podcast is a 50-50 partnership. So I'm on a journey here. So I'm having a good time. But my question, talking about fighting, and Chris, you mentioned, you know, there have been conflicts. And I think that's a problem. People think that a great partnership doesn't have conflict in it, and that's a lie, right? The great partnership is the one that you have conflicts and it lasts for a moment and you overcome them, right? You can get into as much detail as you want, or you can keep it surface level, but what has been the biggest fight or the biggest conflict that you guys have had as partners? Maybe share some details, and how did you guys get out of it? Like, how you overcame it?
I'll let Mason lead off.
Wow.
I don't really know, like, which. I can't
I don't
even
know
pick
that.
one that I would say was a big.
I don't-
No, yeah.
Honestly, I don't. It's at any time we've been after each other in a day at the office, it's usually followed up with a phone call from one or the other with, you know, like, hey, if I pressed too hard, or I apologize. I don't know that we've had anything that's been super long lasting.
I would agree. I don't think it's ever more than a, you know, I'm most likely to be more. What's the word?
Uppity?
Uppity than Mason. You know.
Laura, I need you to listen to this.
Yeah.
My wife always says, "Why can't you be more like Chris? He's so calm." And I'm like,
So here's what I will say, and I don't want to give myself too much credit, but I do think it takes a pretty high degree of, you know, I'll call it EQ to function in these, you know. And I know if the last thing I want Mason to do is to ever leave something that we've had a little bit of a difference on it. And, you know, we've had some pretty high pressure things recently. And, you know, if I'm remembering one recently, you know, the last thing I ever want Mason to do is think or feel that I don't value him, that I don't see and recognize all that he puts into this too. You know, just because I might be focused on something extremely at the moment, there's no it doesn't take anything from Mason, even though I might have expressed some frustration on something. You know, Mason's in it as deep as I am with all the same. I don't know what we do. We've just lived it so well together that there's not some. I'm not owed anything. You know, it's just it's a very fair, equitable relationship, and the last thing I'd want him to do is think that I don't feel that. So I typically will follow up pretty, and you would too. I can't recall one that really it was more that you needed, but I will call and just be like, dude, I'm sorry. I know I was in a zone, and I was, we were linebackers. It's like I was playing linebacker there for a minute, and I was whatever, but. Yeah. Anyway, it would sit on me very heavy if I felt Mason didn't know how much I appreciated and valued him. So
I think Chris kind of hit it on the head. I would say, kind of stepping back, one other area that's probably helped Chris and I even more so lately than early on. Not that we both weren't kind of faithful in our own respective religions, but I do think the shared faith that we have together has been another way for us to get through challenges or just operate in a manner that's caring for each other, if that makes sense. At a different level.
I know this is a business podcast, but can we go? I mean, you're Catholic, you're LDS.
Yes.
And you just said the shared faith that we have and how that's been a catalyst to your guys' success. Can you just go a little bit deeper? And we can get spiritual for a sec.
Well, I think our shared belief in Jesus Christ, right? I mean, that's the simple of it. But I think ultimately neither of us sit back and say, well, my church is right, yours is. We don't care. Like we discuss things openly without a bias, if that makes sense, right? And usually it's tied to family, work, different things like that, and how it applies there. So a lot of it's child rearing, of course, me, and trying to figure out the best way to do that and the best way to be a good husband. But I think it's actually helped us more so lately, I think. When we were younger, we didn't talk about it as much, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think.
It's probably been a little bit different lately.
I'm glad you brought that up because I think it's something that's not brought into business relationships, but I think is as you get into a partnership, having every aspect, like how's your family, how are your relationships, how's your health doing, how's your spirituality doing, and being able to get on the same page there. We've had conversations about God and work and like what do our wives need right now, what is our spirituality needing right now, and how does that play a part in what the business is also needing from us right now. So thanks for bringing that up. Nice. Yeah. All right. You said it's not for everyone, don't do it, but then I think you kind of redacted that a little bit. And Kinda.
I think you've heard why.
Can you say if you have these characteristic traits, a 50-50 partnership is not for you?
If you have them?
Yeah. If you have or don't have these specific characteristic traits, don't go into a 50-50 partnership.
Sorry, one more time. If you don't have these traits, or if you do have these specific traits, you should avoid it.
Both sides.
Okay. I think a huge trait is being able to let go of things and have understanding of where each other is at that particular moment. I think that's huge if you want to be successful in it. I think if you can't do that, then for sure, you got to let things go. I think that you have to have the ability to fully trust someone. I fully trust that Chris has always got our best interest in mind. And to his point, he said earlier, he prays for me and my family. I know he loves me as much as he loves, I'm not going to say his wife, but he loves my family equally, if you will. That makes sense. So I don't know how common that is for a lot of people. So I would say trust and the ability to let things go are major components to being able to make a partnership work.
I don't know how common it is, not just for a partnership, but for a human to love somebody else like they love their own family.
That could have been a little bit.
No,
but I do think there's that level there.
I don't think it's there doesn't need to be any apology for that. What you guys have created is amazing, like amazing business, amazing partnership. That's what we're talking about. That's why people are interested in it. I wrote down trust, quick to forgive, let go easily, great communication. You both seem 100% in, not I'm going to do 50%, you do 50%. It seems I'm going to make this work. I'm going to make this work 100% equally. You both seem to give each other a lot of grace, and you have understanding for each other. I wrote ego with a little cancellation symbol around it. Can you guys talk about the role of ego in building Solstice and in your relationship?
Do you mean pride? Are those two
Pride,
together?
ego,
I mean,
however you want to define it.
My comment there is, I think you got to be able to self-audit. I mean, that's a very, to have introspection and to look at, ego is thinking, that you're right, that you know, or, all these things. And I just don't think there's a lot of room for ego in business, especially if you want to grow. I mean, in a partnership, in your business, in everything you're trying to accomplish, if you want to grow, I don't think there's a lot of room for ego. I'm sure people that know us might say we have some ego. I don't know, but I think in high degree, I think we audit a lot, and like, hey, that didn't work, or that's it, from, again, contributing into the business. I think we're more of collaborators than I know. I mean, we're trying to raise the IQ of an outcome, not say, I know the way. Does that make sense? Our team members say to us all the time, we feel like we're so much a part of this company. We contribute on it. I mean, I've heard that dozens of times from our team, that we actually have a seat at the table, that we're part of this, that we get to contribute to how the business is created and run and everything. So, I mean, I just don't think that there's some one of us trying to say we're doing it this way. Like that's just not even part of the discussion ever. So, I mean, back to ego again. We all have it at some degree or another, but I think you've really got to self-audit regularly and say, hey, that doesn't serve anyone here.
We've talked a lot about the soft skills relationship side of a 50-50 partnership. Can we dive in a little bit? So there's a book called Rocket Fuel, and it talks about, again, that Steve Wozniak, Steve Jobs, where you have this visionary who's generally, and I hate the stereotypes that it gives in books like this, or personality trait books. But in this book, it talks about how the visionary is generally switches from one vision to the next vision to the next vision, compared to the integrators, a little more steady Eddie. The visionary sees things probably further in the future, versus the integrator is what needs to be done today. Do any of those resonate with you guys? Do you feel like there are some hard skills that you bring to the table that fits that mold, or is it something that you guys have created outside of this rocket fuel concept?
I would definitely say that the visionary side of it, to your point, is a little more of Chris's natural trait and skill. Like, he just does an excellent job at that. He's always thinking ahead, but he also can get into the details, right? And what's going on in the day to day, and sometimes he helps me there. To be frank, I mean, there's 9,000 things going on in a day, and it's like, well, what about this? And it's like, oh yeah, you're right. We got to get that dialed in. So, I don't know if I fully answered that, but I think Chris is definitely the visionary side of the coin for us. I don't know. Integrator is kind of a weird.
It is interesting. I don't know if I've ever quite, I've read or been around that concept quite a bit. I don't know if we exactly identify into those two roles that great, because I don't think Mason is less on any one of those particulars. Recently, we did what were those analysis
we
done?
did them on Colby.
Yeah. And did you see Mason's?
Yes, but I don't remember Mason's.
It's like perfectly balanced on all of them.
Yeah.
So it's just
fungible.
I'm the moderator.
So I guess I don't, where's not even inadequacy. I don't see anything that he's not, proficient at and great at, And so I don't know if we exactly fit that.
I don't know either.
We had a hard time even saying, like, when roles kind of got like, who's this person? And we've really kind of pushed back on that a little bit too.
Yeah.
It's just, we are the owners, we're the partners, we're the, and there's, but we do have different skills. So we just kind of fulfill those a little. We don't spend a ton of time really going in trying to delineate out everything, Like you said, we cover stuff. It's kind of funny. Just the other day, my wife was said, "Well, you and Mason communicate so well." It's like, but because we do, we
Right.
cover so many things so well, so regularly that it's just, I don't know. I think we're great communicators to each other. So I don't think that answered the question that
No,
well.
I love that answer,
but
because I think these books are written, these personality traits, these boxes are created that says you're this box, and it doesn't leave any room in the way that they've articulated it from this academic perspective to be anything other than whatever this label is that they're going to give you.
Always way more gray.
Which is it's way more gray.
Way more gray.
And often trying to be in that boxes can help if people are in those and they're at the extremes. There can be some communication tactics that are helpful, but I think you're right. Oftentimes it's just so much more gray, and there's so much more overlap, and the rules change as family situations change and business needs change. I have one more question. Anything from you, Carlos, before I ask my final question?
I have just my final question, so you can ask.
Okay. Mine is advice to yourself in your 20s. So let's do advice to yourself in 2004.
So it's kind of funny because I was just starting my corporate life at that point. And I always knew, it's actually funny side story. I had a client that I called on that was a really cool guy, cool business dude, sharp, had a brother, 50% partner. And he had always told me, he's like, I know you're not going to be our sales guy for long. And I'm like, why? He's like, you're going to go do your own thing. And it was weird because it's like I knew it, but it was almost like that push out the door, right?
Never heard that. That's cool.
I know. I don't. It's kind of surprising. I haven't told you that, but it just dawned on me. But his name was Jeff Kilgore. Cool guy. Anyway, dive into the details more, I think, would be some advice. I think take more finance courses. Know that lingo a little better. Really, as a builder developer, there was zero experience in that front for me when we started. So it was fun to dive in and learn, but it probably would have been, better to know a little bit more at that point.
See,
to say.
My comment on this is because I would say this in the same way, like, we're getting more sophisticated right now, right? Where all the details matter and all of it matters more to us now. But I don't know if I could go back and say you need to know more detail. This will kind of hit into ego a little bit, but I would just say keep your self-confidence and belief in what you can do as high as it is right now. Because I think we thought 100% this is who we are, this is what we're doing, and I don't know, could we have always done something better? Absolutely. But what's the point in, going back and saying, we fought to where we fought to get to, and so of course, yeah, I can use advice at any time. I would have just said, man, keep your faith and your self-belief high and keep pressing. So I know that's a little bit of a cop-out to that question, but.
No, I think now that you say that, you're right. Because it's like, what could we do differently? You're right.
Could we caught up more details back then? We've matured in our business to the place we are right now, and we know right now we want to get much more sophisticated now.
Yeah.
And I think that's our pathway to the next level. But going back to where we were learning everything. I would be in meetings with like an engineer. I would have no idea what was going on, a structural or civil.
We still don't really.
Yeah, we're just like, okay. And they would like tell me stuff, and I'd be like writing that down, like, oh yeah, okay, do that too. Like no idea what they were talking about. And so we were learning from everyone as we went, as fast as we can. So anyway, just kind of funny.
I love that. My question is very similar. I actually have two questions, but Court asked you what advice you would give to your younger self, but as you guys reflect in the last 20 years of your lives, what is the greatest advice you received?
I'm going to go with a little bit of like, yeah, I would say we've been given this advice, and I would share this advice. I would say something along the lines of, you know, this is a combination of a couple things, but it's more of what you don't do sometimes than what you do. Meaning, get a vision for what you want to do, and try and aim as far as that vision is that you want it to go, and think long term about it. I actually had said, I know you may have heard me say this, but I always knew I wanted to be a very capable developer at 50. And I believe I said that in my 20s, because I could just tell it took maturing in this. Was there a shortcut? Sure. There probably, we could have grown faster by doing some things, So I just think taking the long view in almost everything, and it's kind of that delayed gratification in a way, because I don't see the short-term things pay off very well, in relationships, in reward of what you're trying to do, in whatever. I just think so, I was invited or recruited or whatever to a lot of different businesses. But I was like, no, I know what I want to do. And yeah, you're right. You probably do make more than me right now in business. But I've got a long-term vision that I think, pays off way differently than what this is. And I'm grateful I didn't get caught up in some of those. I don't want to mention the industries because they're great industries, but I just didn't want to do them. So I know sometimes what I didn't do mattered, and then long term, I just think ultimately this is a marathon. There's no such thing as a sprint in business, and and anyone that approaches it that way is going to have challenges.
How about for you, Mason?
So I got a couple things here, because I've always kind of I don't remember exactly where I heard the 3 P's, but it's perspective, perseverance, and persistence. It's like having those things have been kind of a good reminder for me on how to approach our business life. And then I think too, a lot of people get into that comparison. It's like comparison's the thief of joy, right? If you're looking at someone else saying, "Oh, I could have that, or I could do this, or they sold this, or whatever," like it doesn't serve me or us if I'm doing that, or if you're doing that to yourself, right? Leave that somewhere else, and you believe in what you're doing, plow ahead, make it work. Because I think if you have the vision and the right attitude and the right wherewithal, if you will, you can make it happen.
I had one more question, but I think this is a perfect place to wrap. Those are great advices, and loved your guys' energy, and learned a ton from you guys.
Okay, thanks guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Court. That was fun. Carlos, thanks, man.
You've been watching Hello Grow, the world's #1 growth podcast. I'm Cortland Brady.
I'm Carlos Souza. If you've watched this video so far, it means that you like the content that we're putting out and the people we're interviewing.
We're putting together a community of business leaders, entrepreneurs, and sales leaders. You liking, subscribing, and sharing this content helps us reach those that are going on that journey.
If you want to be a part of this community, please subscribe, smash that like button, and turn on those notifications.